When it comes to vehicles and Transport Tycoon, trains are definitely the most favored, but there are 3 other vehicles that I've been ignoring. Until now. Trucks, boats, and planes all have their uses, but today I'll be focusing on just one, the truck. But not just any one truck, how about 5,000 trucks? And why 5,000? Well, it's the maximum number of vehicles of a single type that you're allowed to have on one map. And speaking of one map, let's see what I've got to work with. Impossibly small and basically impossible to work with. Perfect. This is where I usually set up a passenger train to make some starting cash, but I'm using only trucks here. Instead, I try to emulate that same train line with a bus route. The only problem is that payout for deliveries is based on the distance traveled, and the only 2 cities on this entire map are only 20 tiles apart. Even so, this barely manages to eke out a profit, so it's not a total loss. I might as well start working on the actual network. In tropical maps, wood pays more than any other cargo by a very wide margin, so I guess the network starts here. Or it would, if this map wasn't so small that anything producing wood couldn't spawn. Well, goods are the second most paying cargo. Secondary cargoes are a pretty good way to start that I feel is not very common to see. You get to profit from both the primary cargo and the cargo produced by the secondary. It's a nice change of pace instead of transporting passengers for the millionth time. I'll connect 2 copper mines for now, and expand as the income grows. Actually, that should be quite soon. These trucks are remarkably cheap. That seems to have fixed the budget problem. With growth like this, I'll be hitting the integer limit in no time. Now to connect some more industries. Even with the influx of new income, money is still an issue, and honestly, I'm anticipating it being a problem for a long time. The carrying capacity of a singular truck is peanuts compared to the most basic train, and their speed doesn't help either. Payouts are based both on the distance the cargo travels and the time it takes to get there, and in this case, the map is too small for distance and the trucks are too slow for quickness. At least they're cheap, because I wouldn't get very far otherwise. We're producing a good amount of goods now. I set up a station to send all of these to a nearby town, and in return, we get a nice payday. The roads are definitely more active, but we're only 1% of the way to 5,000. This might be more challenging than I originally thought. Time to strategize. These trucks carry a very small amount of cargo. It's around the amount carried by 1 train wagon, so I should have no trouble spamming many times more of these than I would with trains. This cargo capacity, combined with their slow speed, actually makes a pretty good combo. We need to maximize the number of trucks servicing each industry. A lower capacity means more trucks will be needed to transport cargo. A lower speed means that a truck's round trip is longer, allowing time for more trucks to fit inside the same route. And I can extend the round trip by making roads meander a little more than usual. The downside of this approach is that the only way to extend a route is to build longer roads, and this map kind of fights against that. At this point, I've connected every industry on the map, with the only exception being water towers. The only destination for water are cities on desert tiles, and this map has none of those. So far, I've been connecting industries without any consideration of organizing. I should probably start restructuring everything into a coherent network. But what do I mean by coherent network? If you're planning a network with the purpose of high throughput, you'll probably want it to be easier to upgrade and maintain long term. Consider the 2 tiers of industry. Primary industries, like iron or copper mines, naturally have a lower priority in terms of the broader cargoverse. Secondaries, like food plants and smelteries, receive primary cargo and also generate their own cargo. For this reason, we give secondary traffic a higher priority. We'll combine the traffic from primary industries into a route of low-priority traffic. Do note that these routes are situational and should only take traffic from sources in the immediate area. We can call these sidelines because their paths are not required for all traffic. All of this traffic needs to be directed around the map. This is where the main line comes in. The main line is basically the highway of a network, and in this case, literally. Sidelines and secondaries connect to the main line, allowing traffic to move around the map more efficiently. The traffic on the main line has the highest priority overall. I may be using trucks here, but this system is designed for trains. In fact, I use this network layout in every map that I play. Well, unless there's some wacky gimmick keeping me from doing so. While explaining, I reorganized the entire network, and while doing that, I split the main line into 2 separate one-way roads. Trucks rarely behave as one would expect, and keeping directions of traffic separated benefits us greatly in the long run. Let's add some more trucks! Well, it appears we have a slight problem. At some point, I changed the road graphics because the originals are a little hard to make out from far away. I didn't expect this to cause an issue, but I was wrong. All of our trucks have vanished. Luckily, this can be fixed. All I have to do is add another set of trucks, and while I couldn't find a mod that replaces the originals, there are quite a few that add trucks similar in power to those found in vanilla. Actually, these new trucks are slightly weaker than the ones we had before. Fun! Since our current trucks no longer exist, I'll have to replace all of them with the new ones. It's a bit tedious to replace every vehicle, but considering how early I am in this run, it could have been a lot worse. If these were trains, I probably would have retired right here. Well, all the trucks have been replaced, but it will take some time for traffic to disperse again. Speaking of traffic, I've connected every industry and all cargoes are fully saturated with trucks. So now what? There's really not much I can do besides wait for industries to increase their production. But I'm not so patient. I've got a decent amount of income now, so I can just start prospecting new ones. Prospecting is a balanced way to spawn new industries on a map. For the low fee of $1 million, the game tries to spawn a new industry on a random map tile. Since industries have location-specific requirements, this does have a high chance of failing, and that's further exaggerated on a map like this. I prospected a few copper mines. They seem like the best option for adding more trucks. And lucky for us, their production is pretty good. The round trip for goods trucks is a lot longer than for copper, so for each copper truck I can spawn several goods trucks. The plan for longer trip times is paying off already. At one point, the payouts were few and far between, but now, with over 400 trucks, we've got a constant stream of income. Truck domination is now inevitable, and the sky is our only limit. I built this food plant station early on, but its location is very close to where its cargo is being delivered. A longer trip time means more trucks, so I'll find a new plant a bit farther away. The new location is pretty far from the main line, so it's time to expand. I'll have to do some refactoring, but it's not too bad. I'm building these road junctions with the same logic I use for trains. Trucks are a lot more freeing though. Every build ends up a lot smaller than it would have been if I had used rails, and the only caveat is that everything is a bit square. This is actually pretty fun. I don't have to worry about signals or train crashes. I'm sure these feelings will last for the whole run. Moving the food plant gave me the space to add over 100 new trucks. With almost 500 in total, we're 10% the way to the goal. There's one more secondary that I feel could be placed elsewhere. The refinery receives oil and turns it into goods. These goods, much like those produced by the factory, are delivered to cities. This oil refinery has the same issue as the food plant. The round trip for its trucks is just way too short. I'll move the new refinery across the map. That way, it should be as far from the city as possible. It may seem like a cheese mechanic to abuse trip length in this way, but if you do the math, it kind of makes sense. This map is 128 tiles squared. While that gives me over 16,000 tiles to work with, I'm aiming for 5,000 trucks. This means that by the time I've hit that goal, we'll be averaging around 1 truck per 3 tiles across the entire map. These trucks all have to go somewhere, and that somewhere is more roads. It should be known that in a perfect world, 2 trucks can fit inside 1 tile of road. But this is not a perfect world, at least for trucks this weak. They lack the power to run full speed up a hill, so any incline lowers the maximum throughput. Just like the food plant, moving the refinery this far away means that I get to add some more trucks. A lot more trucks. The round trips for both the refinery and all of its contributing oil wells are now extremely long. This singular oil well is now contributing almost 100 trucks to the total count. At this point, a lot of stations have been shifted around, but I would say that most everything is set in stone now. There may come a point where I need to move the main line to add some more space, but that time is not now. What it is time for, however, is some more industries. Food and oil production currently provide our largest source of traffic. I'll prospect some more farms and oil wells to further boost this. I was very thorough when spreading sidelines throughout the map, so all it takes to utilize these new industries is a station and a simple connection to the sideline. I'm nearing the limit of industries I'd like to have connected. We may not be very far into this map truck-wise, but the production of these industries will continue to increase over time. What I've already connected might just be enough to supply the cargo required for 5,000 trucks. The network is very active now. Roads that once rarely saw traffic are now nearly filled. This would otherwise be a happy and joyous occasion. But hey, it's our first traffic jam. I guess it's finally time to add some more lanes. I wasn't expecting it to take so long for this to happen, but that's kind of a good thing. 1 lane per 700 trucks isn't that bad of a deal. In the long run, it probably won't be that easy though. Roads are definitely not my strong suit, and that might be hindering the network. It's not so much that they are hard to build, but a lot of the rail standards I've come to know have no applications here. There are a few things that are very similar though. When dealing with a network that has 2 or more lanes, you need to ensure that traffic spreads evenly between them. Here's an example using trains. We have a main line consisting of 2 lanes, and 1 incoming lane merging between them. If traffic is heavier on one side of the main line, trains have a harder time joining and instead choose the other side. This ensures that traffic stays balanced between all available lanes. Since trucks don't have signals to rely on for guidance, we have to rely on the Pathfinder instead. In lieu of signals, we place dummy stations on both merging lanes. When a truck is driving through one of these station tiles, any trucks behind it see that station is a massive Pathfinder penalty. This causes trucks to flip back and forth between the 2 merges. This approach is not perfect and does require a constant stream of traffic to work properly, but it certainly can carry out the balancing needed for this run. The lack of signals, or any other method to finely control traffic, is an interesting challenge. It invites solutions that one can only call wacky. I've been trying to only use tunnels when roads have to cross paths. There's no functional reason for this, but in my opinion, it looks a lot cleaner. Let's add some more trucks. The space on the main line has been doubled, so for the time being, I can add vehicles to my heart's content. I'll prospect some more industries too. This will, hopefully, be the last time I have to do this. From here on out, the industries I'm already serving should grow at a fast enough rate to add all the trucks I want. All of these new additions push us well over the 1,000 truck barrier. We are now 1/4 of the way to 5,000. As a result of my rampant truck buying, all of the secondary stations are now swamped with traffic. Some are far busier than others though. All of the cargo from our goods factory, oil refinery, and food plant ends up at this station being delivered to the city. And as you can see, it really can't handle that level of traffic. I think it's about time to upgrade this thing. This is about the time where my knowledge of roads runs out, and while there's not as much to know compared to rails, that's kind of the problem. With trucks relying entirely on the Pathfinder to guide them, most of the control is out of my hands. I landed on this design that inputs 2 lanes of traffic, shuffles them, and then outputs 2 lanes back onto the main line. While this definitely handles more traffic, there's another lane's worth of stations here. Whether or not this is more efficient than the previous design is beyond me. It seems the main line is already backing up. Time to add some more lanes. Hooray. I always get stuck in a loop of incremental upgrades, so why not just build the entire main line to the scale of 5,000 trucks right now? Hopefully, this guarantees a decent traffic flow for the foreseeable future. I wonder if anyone gets annoyed that I use essentially the same 10 songs in all of my videos. What you're hearing now is my Get Her Done theme, as in, I'm getting some work done. I've looked all over for some new soundtracks to mix in, but nothing hits quite the same way as the early 2000s Maxis games. Since I'm doing this large of an upgrade, I'll refit the network to account for all of these trucks' shortcomings. I mentioned in passing that these trucks are not able to take inclines at full speed. Well, the main line is full of random inclines, and the effect they have on traffic flow is pretty extreme. I've had this issue once before when building a network with the slowest train, and my solution with trucks is very similar. For the duration of the incline, the one road gets split into two. The additional road space allows trucks to move slower and stops any disrupting of traffic. There is one crucial mechanic I haven't yet covered that I'll also be trying to fix. When trucks take a turn, they slow down quite a bit, albeit for a short amount of time. Much like the slow incline speeds, this also has the effect of lowering throughput. There is a workaround for this, but it's a little wacky. If you've ever built a rail line, you may have noticed that you can't place signals on bridges. In high-throughput networks, this quickly becomes a bottleneck. Adding a second bridge usually solves this. Instead of waiting for the bridge to clear, trains will swap back and forth between the two. We can apply a similar fix for the turning roads. Instead of one turn, we can split it into two, and then afterwards, they recombine back into one lane. Now my execution of this isn't exactly perfect, but it does regain some of the throughput lost. It also birthed this unholy 8-lane mega turn right in the midpoint of the main line. Micro-optimizations like this make roads some of the most cursed things in Transport Tycoon. One more thing I've been slowly implementing are some level crossings. While the rails don't serve any purpose train-wise, these crossings do act as a small penalty for the Pathfinder. When placed correctly, these go a long way in further balancing traffic. That is, with some trial and error, of course. That was a lot of building. I've changed my approach to building these junctions so each of them had to be completely rebuilt from scratch. But I've gotta say, the result is pretty nice. This might be a bit too much to add in just one session, but really, only the roads are new. Our trucks are the same as always. It's time to add some more trucks. I've been going pretty wild spawning these things in. If I see that no trucks are waiting in the station, that's a sign that I should add about 30 more of them. We are now at 2,000 trucks total. All of this for a mere 12 million per year in profit. I do wonder just how much more we'd be making on a larger map, but that's a question for a future game. All of this infrastructure, and I'm not even half the way to the goal. There's a lot of construction that I can do, but one thing has been bugging me. The shape of this network is a little ugly. So far, we've got a C shape around the west side of this lake. I'd like to turn this into a full circle, improving the appearance and giving some more room for the trucks. I'm getting some serious road fatigue. While it's true that they're a lot easier to build, it just gets kind of annoying. This big of a change to the layout will surely mean even more debugging as well. Actually, this change will probably destroy traffic flow for the time being. I've built this network relying entirely on long trip times, and circling the network like this gives most of the trucks a giant shortcut. It may take some time before traffic returns to its former state. Well, let's just hope that I'm wrong. And wow, that's actually not terrible. I haven't had to mess with any new Pathfinder penalties either. There's still a few lanes that are getting pretty hammered though. I'll place a few penalties around and see what I can do to even it out. There's no exact science to this. I'll place a rail crossing on a lane that sees more traffic than others. If I speed up time, you can see that the traffic slowly responds to this new penalty. If the result looks good, I'll keep it. Otherwise, it's back to the drawing board. I'm surprised this new layout functions so well. In celebration, let's add some more trucks! There are so many industries growing so quickly, I can pretty much add as much as I like. All in all, that's about 400 new trucks. I could stand to add quite a few more, but the factory is getting backed up. I've been slapping on band-aid fixes here as traffic has increased, but it's reached a breaking point. I'll rework this area to take 2 lanes instead of 1. Since we'll have 2 lanes, I'll build 2 sets of station platforms, so each lane can find its own station. I'm running out of space here. Even while eschewing the optimal turning and incline splits, this area is basically maxed out. Even so, 2 slightly hindered lanes are better than 1. The food plant is beginning to face the same issues, except in this case, we're already out of space. You already know that I'm not going to let that get in my way. I'll hit him with the classic station under the industry trick. Well, back to adding more trucks. Fixing up those stations lets the total grow to 3,000. With all the troubles I had in the beginning, I was doubting that we'd even get to this point, but traffic is flowing quite nicely and we're finally on the home stretch. At this point, I'm banking on the main line being able to handle 5,000 trucks as is. Everything else, however, likely will not. The sidelines are becoming more and more filled over time, and even the stations I've just upgraded are starting to fall apart. I think it's for the best to do a sweep of general upgrades before we ride this crazy train all the way to 5,000. It is no easy feat to do network maintenance with 3,000 rogue trucks running amok. This is definitely another area where the ease of building attributes to its own detriment. When using rails, you can stop any incoming trains in an area you'd like to work on. This clears out rails for construction. Trucks, however, have the ability to overtake other stopped trucks. I'm really not sure why this is a feature at all because it rarely works the way it should. This makes it impossible to stop trucks from getting into a construction area outside of completely removing the road connections. You may have noticed before, but I just send every truck to a depot while I need to build. This is the most boring option, but I really have no other choice if I'd like to remain pleasant-natured. Anyways, I'm upgrading the 3 sidelines on the map to have 2 lanes instead of 1. It ends up getting a little messy, but as I explained before, this traffic has the lowest priority overall. Getting these to the point where traffic moves smoothly is good enough. The drop station in the city could use a lot more work. Over half of the trucks visit this station during their journey, and I expect this ratio to hold until the end. The 2 lanes of station platforms can barely keep up with traffic as is, so to future-proof it, I'll add 2 more lanes. I never thought that I'd get this sick of a map, but during the recording of all this, I was pretty ill. During the many fever dreams about frantically connecting roads together, I decided I was never touching roads ever again. Here is but a glimpse of my ever-waning sanity. Though roads can be very annoying to work with, it is fun seeing space utilized to such a degree. There are very few tiles with nothing going on. You know the network is special when it starts looking like a printed circuit board. Well, that's all done. Let's add some more trucks. With all these upgrades in place, I can add however many trucks I want. That being said, I'd like for all of these trucks to actually be doing something. Placing 5,000 trucks that sit idle 90% of the time is not a valid performance. Even so, I valiantly spam trucks all the way to 4,000. Responsibly, of course. There's not much left to build, but there's a few things I'd like to fix. When I made the network into a circle, it had the side effect of reducing the trip time on some of the routes. The most severely impacted were the trucks carrying goods produced by the oil refinery. Their trip time was cut in half, so there's a ton of trucks with nothing to do. I really don't want to remove a couple hundred valuable trucks, so instead I'll break my one rule and fund even more industries. It's a good thing I upgraded these sidelines because I'm about to flood them with a slew of new oil trucks. It'll take some time, but all of the underutilized goods trucks will eventually become useful again. And just to make sure, I'll check if any other trucks have had the same issue with trip time. An easy way to check this is to sort our trucks by least profitable. Scrolling through this list makes it apparent there are quite a few trucks losing money. Around 100 of these can be safely removed due to their routes becoming shorter. The rest are all food trucks. None of these trucks are idling, they just don't earn enough from deliveries to be profitable year over year. I could move the food plant further away from the city, but at this point an endeavor like that might just end me. You know what I can do though? Add some more trucks! We've got room for about 500 more before we hit 5,000, so I think it's time for a classic ramble. This is by far the most effort I've ever put into an actual playthrough, but looking back at it now, it was mostly a bunch of grinding. While I always try my best to explain how and why I build things, there's just not the same amount of depth to be found in roads compared to rails. Still though, it was a nice change of pace. This map definitely turned out great and is one of my favorites I've ever made. There's some stuff that I skipped over because a lot of truck handling happens with micro-optimizations. A couple hundred clips of me shifting a road one tile to the right would not have been fun to watch or edit. This 5,000 challenge is something I'd eventually like to do with each type of vehicle, although this type of challenge is actually pretty hard, so it's not exactly on my immediate to-do list. But that's not to say that the runs I normally do aren't difficult, it's just that this type of goal is far beyond anything else. After my experience with this map, I would actually recommend trucks as a starting point for building high-capacity networks. There's not much to know, but most of what you do learn is very transferable to rails. It's just a matter of learning which building options are available and when those options are appropriate to use. Wait a second, here comes the last truck! 5,000 big ones! It only took a few years off my lifespan, but we finally hit the goal. This was a fun adventure into the world of road networks, and I have to say, the outcome is pretty cool. Even better knowing that my road knowledge going into all of this was surface level at best. It's crazy to think that all of this road nonsense could be replaced with like 300 trains. Trucks were definitely not meant to be pushed this far, but the game system somehow managed just fine. Truly a fine display of emergent gameplay. Well, this is what 5,000 trucks on a micromap looks like. For the first time in recorded history, there's no need for one more lane bro.